Okay. Oh, I've done. Um, okay, lovely. Welcome to the recording of this session um, for LGBTQ Study Abroad in Sydney. My name is Priya, and I'm the Study Abroad Coordinator here at the university, looking after incoming students. I'm also a queer woman, and I'm on the Pride Network at the university and working on incoming DEI scholarship students. And with me is Elisa, who is one of our current social media ambassadors from Chile, who will be sharing her experience later. So, as a broad overview of the session, we are going to kind of start zoomed out, and I'll speak generally about Sydney as a queer-friendly city, the different locales that are especially affirming and have the most things to do. Then we'll zoom in to campus activities. And of course, I'll try and keep it brief. And then we'll hear from Elisa. We'll share a bit on the student experience. And then at the end, I have a couple of quick slides on application processes and logistics. So in general, overall, I would say, Sydney is one of the most queer-friendly cities in the world. We have the biggest Pride Festival. And on the whole, I would say there's no place in Sydney where you could not walk down the street holding hands with your partner. It is, on the whole, obviously we have legalized same-sex marriage. It is a safe city. It's a safe city in general in terms of the crime rate being quite low, but it's also um, just a safe city for queer people. So I am in the next few slides highlighting particular locales, but I want to preface that by saying that those are not the only places that are queer friendly. The whole city is queer friendly. And if I was going to speak about activities that are on and places to go and things to do, I would fill several hours. So we're going to be specific, but don't take that as an exhaustive list. So some key spots to highlight, I would say Darlinghurst, which is home to Oxford Street, which is the Rainbow Mile, is kind of known as the queer hub of the city. You can see here, this is Taylor Square, where this rainbow is a permanent fixture. It's not just something that's up for Pride Month. And it's just the kind of place where there are stacks of queer venues, drag bingo, drag shows every night, queer nights. And the streets are just littered with pride flags. Every shop window has a pride flag and also has a really high density of queer residents. That is where the annual Pride Parade is, which I'll talk a bit more about later. And there are just various monuments around the city. So that's just an easy place where it's just a really high concentration of queer activities. More on the university's doorstep is Newtown, which is a really student dense area and sort of to the city's west. So it's more diverse and in general kind of youth oriented. So very similar vibe. If not all venues, there's a lot of queer owned venues, and certainly they're all safe spaces where there's, again, a lot of drag. You can see here, this is Pride Square in Newtown. Hopefully you can see that and it's not blocked by my little screen. Pride Square in Newtown. And then the Imperial Hotel, I've popped a little photo in there if anyone's familiar with Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, the iconic movie. This was featured and it's still an institution in Sydney. So lots of drag, but also a lot of community-centered events there. And then for the beach focused among us, the eastern beaches are pretty notorious, not notorious, I should say, but like very queer friendly. So this rainbow kind of progress flag was an installation that was updated for World Pride, which Sydney hosted last year, and is now just a permanent fixture. So rainbows all over the city. I've highlighted a few venues there, but again, the list would be incredibly long. So if you feel like following their Instagram pages and having a look, you can. And then to give you an idea of the geography of all of that, this is the University of Sydney campus. We're super lucky that we have this huge chunk of real estate in the middle of the city. But as you can see, Newtown is actually like the campus actually backs onto Newtown. So it's a place you can easily go for lunch. It also has a very high density of Thai restaurants, which is just nice, convenient, and well priced. Um, so getting there, you can walk there really and access that, and then you can see like the eastern beaches are kind of a half an hour to an hour on the bus, depending on where exactly you're headed, or like 20 minutes in a car. Very accessible. And then Darlinghurst, which is where Oxford Street is in the city centre, which is probably like a half an hour or 40-minute walk, or again, like 10 minutes on the bus. So all of those places are really within close reach of the campus. One thing I also wanted to highlight, obviously, there's a lot of, I've spoken a lot about general queer areas, and they, in general, what am I trying to say? There are a lot of spaces that are very welcoming to cisgender men, and so I wanted to highlight here some places that I guess decenter cisgender men, because obviously, basically every space is welcoming for everyone, but especially people who identify as men. So these are some spaces that are focused on women, trans and non-binary people. The Sappho Bar is actually a 10-minute walk from campus. They have poetry nights. It's a really charming venue. It's a bookshop by day and a bar by night. The Bearded Tit, which is there's a photo here, is also a really popular venue. They have Queerborhood every Wednesday where they have different performances from poetry to drag to readings of various literature, and photography exhibits and things. And then every Sunday they have an event called Sad Dyke Sundays. The Lesbian Run Club. This is actually a student photo from one of our other ambassadors here. Is a really active group. They have heaps of members and they don't just do running, they also have pottery, yoga, hiking, different brunches, gig clubs. So they have various events and they have a roster that sort of has something every single week. So it's really good infrastructure if you're new to Sydney and you want to make a group of friends. It's a great place to go. And then there's various Instagram pages if you want to get involved in nightlife for different evening events and parties and things. So definitely follow those. Mardi Gras is our Pride festival, and is, I guess, one of the things we're proudest of in this city. It happens in February every year, so it's a great time to come if you're here in semester one. Arriving in February is a wonderful time, because it is 2 weeks of activities, and the city is absolutely lit up. In a bit of history, it began as a protest in 1978. You can see a photo from that protest there. It followed some, unfortunately very normal for that time, police brutality and human rights abuses. And so from that was kind of born this protest that marched up Oxford Street, and it's now this massive, one of the world's biggest pride parades, which is beautiful. It's not, it culminates in the Pride Parade, but all in the lead up, there is a family friendly fair day that is actually hosted on the UCID campus in Victoria Park. And you can see a photo here of our tent, but there's about 200 tents set up that day. And it's more of an informational advocacy day. So you can kind of go around and see different, queer community organizations and groups and support queer businesses that day. And then there's also a Mardi Gras film festival that's running at the same time. There's art exhibits. There's a whole bunch of different activity that lines up at the same time to create a really nice vibe in the city. And then on top of that, we actually also do celebrate the kind of global Pride Month in July. So it's a very prideful place to be because we do two full months of that activity. And you can see, there's a link at the bottom, or you can just go to the Mardi Gras website to see the kinds of activities that are listed. The university always has a float in the parade, which is open to staff and students. And it's a photo there you can see from a past parade. We have a drag queen, an official university drag queen. And students can join that, or they can join whatever float they want if they don't want to march with staff. All of that is really open. Yeah. And so I've highlighted a lot of parties and nightlife and bars. And one other thing that I wanted to spotlight is Qtopia, which I think isn't necessarily just for what I would call quiet queers, but it is a center for queer history and culture with a huge focus on storytelling. And I think it's one of the first kind of really um, intentionally curated queer museums, probably in the world, but it is three different venues. They have a bunch of permanent, well, not necessarily permanent, but a mixture of permanent and rotating historical exhibits that really honor queer history in Sydney, as well as a venue that does performances, and that ranges from plays to poetry to dance, comedy, a whole bunch of things, as well as a permanent art space. And they've reclaimed a bunch of really incredible venues, including the former like Darlinghurst Police Station, is now like an art space for different like subversive queer art. So it's really worth a look, and I think there is a lot of effort and resources dedicated now in Sydney to um, not only honoring history but also creating spaces that aren't just nightlife. So definitely have a look at that. There's also opportunities to volunteer. And some of the exhibits are really cool, even going back to like First Nations languages you can see there. And it has free entry on Sundays. So for everyone, not just students. Very quickly on queer UCID, this is a photo from Fair Day, where UCID always has a stall. Obviously, it's on campus. So there are a huge amount of support services for all students. We're a campus with 70,000 students. So there's really everything you can think of in terms of disability support, psychological support, financial support, academic support. The main thing to highlight is that specifically for queer students, there are trained student support liaison officers in every faculty in every school. And they are staff who've been through rigorous training on how to, and they have queer lived experience on how to help you navigate what is a really huge amount of resources. So if you have an issue, you may not know how to find the right team to help you, and you can just look someone up on the university website, in your faculty or not, you can really reach out to anyone. And they can just help you with your problem or help point you in the right direction or walk you through what might feel like a cumbersome administrative process. And so that's kind of your first port of call because there are so many support services. And it's sometimes hard to know which ones to access or how to do that. There's also a Pride network, which I mentioned that I'm also a part of, and that's primarily staff. But there are student activities here. These are some photos from one of our other ambassadors who attended a couple of student and staff mixes, and there's always like student welcomes where there's free food and things to do. If you encounter if you have an experience of discrimination, or you feel like something with some level of seriousness has occurred, there's also the Queer Action Collective, or QAC, as they're referred to, which is the queer subgroup within the Student Representative Council, and they have a permanent space in Manning Bar that's a queer space that's just for queer people. Manning Bar is the main bar on campus and the hub of the University Union. Any kind of main venue. So there's a space there on the ground floor that's where they're housed, and you can walk in there anytime. There's also 24/7 wellbeing support for all students. So that's always there. And then I've put in the library because they do a huge amount of, I mean, yeah, libraries I find in general are kind of very queer friendly spaces, but there's a screenshot there. Just move that stuff. There's a screenshot of the library page, and it's just a highlight. I mean, it's not even a queer page, but the first two posts are about pronouns and coming out day, and they have a huge amount of support staff there that they're always available to assist with anything. So any of the university libraries are really well equipped to be affirming spaces with people who have resources to support, if that's where you are when you want to reach out. And then in our advising team, so the team that I work in that welcomes incoming students, a number of us have a queer lived experience. We've all done gender diversity and allyship training, as well as anti-racism training, mental health support training. So you can always reach out to your advisor or anyone in the team that you feel comfortable with if you need. And then there's some handles there if you want to look more at those pages. In particular, on top of the support that I've already mentioned for trans and non-binary students, there's additional resources available when you start your application process. And this is a recent upgrade, which we're very excited about. You can input your title as neutral and enter your preferred name and your preferred pronouns from the beginning of your application. And that will make sure that the advisors who work with you, and then of course, eventually your teachers and professors, are referring to you in the correct way and with the correct pronouns. There are some all-gender bathrooms on campus. Not all of them are all-gender bathrooms, but there are some available. This is a screen grab from the university website for queer students that just has amalgamated all of the common queries for non-binary and trans students especially. So if you would like to find out where the all-gender bathrooms are ahead of time, just have a look. Those are listed on the website. You can see there as one of the tiles. But of course, you can go to the bathroom that aligns with your gender. So that is not controversial, and you can do that all over campus. If you're going through a gender affirmation process, there is quite a firm quite a well-established policy in place to guide staff and students, or I guess to guide staff more so on how to support you. And so that gender affirmation plan, you can have a look at what goes into it, but that's something that you can sit down with your advisor and do, or sit down with, if you have a particular professor that you have a rapport with, or with a student support liaison officer. And that plan just helps us identify how best to support you, what you might need to make sure that, you may not want to have that conversation with your professors. We can certainly do that on your behalf. But the plan is making sure that we put something together that you're comfortable with, and where all of the kind of responsibilities are clear. So you can have a look at that and all of these other bits and bobs on, if you need to change your name or if you need adjustments to your study for any reason on the website. I won't speak too much about clubs and societies. We have at any given time between 5 and 10 queer-focused clubs and societies, and they will wax and wane. So by the time you come to UCIT, if you're thinking about it, there'll probably be even more specific groups in place. The main one is Shades, which is the kind of global university queer society. They do have, in general, kind of a nightlife focus, but something that past students have been involved in, and here are a couple of the photos from previous ambassadors, is the Queer Review, which is a theatrical production that happens once a year, but then there's like a replay in the second half of the year, so you can definitely get involved even if you join halfway through. We've had students involved in that in the past. Barrett here is one of our previous students. If you come in semester one, particularly, there's a camp where they kind of sketch out all of their skits, and then they go into pre-production and they perform it at the Seymour Center, which is a public venue on campus. Loads of fun. There's a bunch of events. This is from one of the Pride rock climbing events. And then Queers of Color is another major group. Obviously, it's for people who identify as people of color, but they also have a focus on, I guess they identify as quiet queers or less so nightlife. So a lot of their events are sort of to do with food or board games or arts and culture, which is really nice as well. And all of those handles are there. Okay, and I will hand over now to Elisa. Do you have slides that you want to share, Elisa? Should I stop sharing, or were you just going to speak?
Yes, I have some slides.
Oh, perfect. Okay, I will stop my share and I'll let you take over.
Oh, I sure.
There should be a button
There it
at
is.
the. Oh, yeah, got it. Perfect.
But, do you see my screen?
Yeah, looks great.
So, hi, my name is Lisa Palma. I'm a student from University of Chile. I'm doing art school on Chile, and I came to use it to do a semester abroad. I've been wanting to do it since I was 16 years old, so this has some planning behind it. And even though I always knew I wanted this university, I was surprised by how friendly and welcome the staff and the students and the professors were with the queer community. Um, One of the things that surprised me the most, and that was kind of a shock, was how up to date were some of the classes that I had. For example, I did one of my first assignments on a case study of hypersexualization of lesbian women in the context of social media, which I found really interesting. And I was really supported by my teacher when I told her that I wanted to do this case study. She gave me resources, she gave me papers to read for uh, researchers, academic lesbian women that were researchers. So that was really interesting and really shocking for me to know that there are these scholars that are so involved into the LGBTQ plus academic world, not only the daily life of queer people. And another thing that I was amazed by was what Priya told before, that it's the UCU clubs and society more because okay, we have the staff that it's really welcoming. However, you have a lot of place where you can build your own safe community, which I found pretty interesting because if you're feeling lonely and you don't want to reach out to a professional person that is going to speak to you in a formal tone, but you just want to have company. There's a lot of these clubs and society that they're really for everything. Like I think they're more than 100. So if you have an interesting on anything, you're gonna find your club. So you have all of these clubs where you can meet up with people that have the same interest with you. So even if you have trouble making friends or talking or just being extroverted, you can find your place where you can find your people, which I think that it's pretty useful, especially being at university, that it's a place so huge and so intimidating sometimes. I think that this is a great resources to have. Also, in the part of resources also made by the UCU, there's a lot of safe spaces. One that Priya mentioned before, it's this queer space that it's an autonomous room located on the ground floor of Manning House, that it's open to all queer identifying and questioning students. I found this really, really, really good and interesting. I got the chance to talk to a lot of the staff of these things concludes when on the welcome week that they have, like in the first day of the welcome week on the semester, they have all of these stands with these clubs and societies, and they explain you what are the clubs about, how those they work. And I went to through a lot of queer clubs and asked them like, so what's the vibe? And they all told me, and I was pretty amazed that they have all of this like so organized groups of people that are made and meant to just help you and make you company in this process. I feel like this is, for me at least, that I come from South America, it was all like really new and advanced. And also doing some of the research of the UC website, I found all of these internal resources because I have known that, for example, there's a mandatory model that you have to do, that it's the consent model, that when I found myself doing this, I was like, what am I doing? Why am I doing a consent model? Because it's mandatory. And as I went through the model and I read the questions along, I realized that it was a sex educational model that you have to do. That was, I think that I learned more on doing that course than on all of my high school life. Like they have all of this sex education, but not only focused on straight couples. They talk about trans persons, non-binary persons, lesbian women, uh, gay, bi, everything. So they cover a lot of topics, and that was really comforting for me because I was never in my country spoke about sex education in a queer environment. So this was an online model. You can leave your anonymous questions, and in that model, they always make sure to give you all of these resources. So if they were talking about a sensitive topic at the end of the model, that make sure to know to let you know, like there's a LGBTQ plus friendly stuff that can help you through if you're going through a tough time. So overall, there's this sense of community. I think that one, we're in a very welcoming country. Two, we have a very welcoming staff on like group of persons that are there to make sure that you are feeling good at uni, and a really good support system where you can build your own community and build your own family and build and be who you are and be yourself and present yourself of the way you are. And I find that really interesting, and like for me it was really shocking when coming here. And for my recommendation, Priya said before me, but one of these Sappho bookstore and coffee shop I love, 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 because it's really near uni. I think it's like a 10-minute walk or something. And I have gone a lot with my classmates after uni, and it's really pretty. It has some really good vegan food because if you're not from Sydney, you may be surprised about how many vegetarian people there are here. And if you're vegetarian, great. They have so many food for you here too. So this is the bookstore and coffee shop that I really love. And for the other places, I really like Newton 2, Oxford Street, and mainly I feel like if you are looking for a place, especially if you come from a background where queer people are not really accepted, or it's dangerous to be a open queer person, and you want to live the experience of being your true self, and it's important to you, I think that Sydney Uni might be a good opportunity for you, because I know what it's like to uh, like you can study whatever you want, but if you are not being yourself or presenting yourself or even using your pronouns, that it's something so simple that so many universities do not uh, take on accountability on. But if you're looking for a place where you can feel safe and like rediscover yourself on that subject and really explore and get in touch with the queerness that may be in you, I think that this is a really welcoming place with a lot of good staff member, good professors, good teacher, good resources, and really amazing students or persons and peers that you can meet. So that's what I had to.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was such a good presentation, Elisa. I really enjoyed it.
think.
I'm so glad we have all the same spots in mind. Okay, I will just quickly wrap up on the boring stuff. It's really heartwarming, I think, for me to kind of, as an Australian person, you take a lot of things for granted. The Matters module, for example, that you were speaking about. I remember doing that and being so bored. And, with modules, you're always like, oh, I have to click through this just to get to the end of it. And when I heard you speak about it, when we chatted, I thought, oh, that's actually so nice. I didn't even see it that way. And it was like it made me quite emotional. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
On to much drier topics. Just 3 slides on dates for um, anyone who's interested in applying. I'll attach the slides to this recording so you can just refer to that. These are the dates for next year. In terms of the application process, you obviously start at your home university. You're nominated to us, and then you'll be connected with a study abroad advisor in my team. And the only thing you need for your application is your transcript. If you don't have a passport, some kind of government issued ID, and proof of your English language proficiency. And then these are the stages you can go through. As I said, you can kind of look at the slides. And if you have any questions, you can reach out. The one thing to note, so Elisa is one of our social media ambassadors for this semester. And we have a couple of scholarships available. So particularly for students in the USA, we work with a fund for education abroad to offer full housing waivers. And that's also available directly through some universities. So if you have a question about this, just reach out, and I can let you know whether we have one for your university. And basically, that just covers your housing for the semester. We have 10 per year, and that's for students from underrepresented demographics. So that definitely includes queer students, also students of color, First Nations students, student athletes, and if you're the first in your family to study abroad. So there's a few different metrics, and we definitely encourage you to apply for either or both of those. And that's it. Thank you for listening to our session recording. And if you have any questions, let me know. Elisa's handle was also up earlier. If you want to reach out to her, I hope that's okay. If you have any questions. Um,
Yes.
Perfect. And that's it from me. Perfect. Thank you. Let me